Don't miss Clownfish Studios' latest crowdfunder, Crimson Wren Volume 1 on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Thaddeus Wendell's greatest treasure is out there, and it's up to young mage Crimson Wren and the crew of a rundown airship called the True North to find it. But will they find it in time? Crimson Wren of the True North is a race against the clock filled with action, adventure, comedy, and heart. This is a brand new manga-style graphic novel from Clownfish Studios. Go to crimsonwren.com or check it out on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. It ends on November 18th. That's November 18th. And now on with the video. Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. We're going to talk about The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, the much hyped Amazon series loosely based on and inspired by, sort of, by J.R.R. Tolkien's classic Lord of the Rings series, is Stories of Middle-earth, except just like the appendices and, again, not really. Let's talk about this because we're trying to figure out how many people actually watch this show, and it's coming out that it might have been a bigger flop than anybody could have imagined, except for YouTubers, negative YouTubers. So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture, news, views, and rants. Guys, over 280, almost 281,000 subs. Hit the subscribe button, trying to get that 300,000. We're going to get there eventually. We're getting to 300,000. Thank you so much for the support. So here's what's so funny about Lord of the Rings, right? This was one of those series, and we've seen this time and time again, that if you hated the show, if you didn't like the show, if you weren't interested in the show, if you were ambivalent about the show and not ecstatic about the show, you were an alt-right Nazi. You were literally Hitler. You were a bigot, a racist, a homophobe. We've heard it time and time and time again since 2016. Every piece of pop culture that doesn't resonate with every person, especially if you're like a white dude, becomes this lightning rod for political discussion. And at the end of the day, all that matters is views. Views are all that matter. And Amazon spent $1 billion on Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, and it seems like the audience drifted away. And now we've got Variety calling it out, saying that they're not coming out and saying what the actual viewership numbers are. We've got Comic Book Resources, which, as I recall, was standing pretty hard for this show, saying, hey, the audience shrank every week. In fact, we have Forbes calling it out, saying that Amazon's arrogant betrayal of Lord of the Rings was The Rings of Power Season 1. We've got other outlets saying Amazon's Lord of the Rings series went wrong, where it went wrong, and what it could have been. Remember, we had Elon Musk getting beat up by Neil Gaiman because he was like, yeah, it's a disaster. Now, of course, Elon Musk has a beef with Amazon's owner, Jeff Bezos. But still, you were not allowed to criticize this show. And now we're seeing all kinds of articles. You know, we had Vulture. The Rings of Power is too big to fail. It's too big to fail. This show does things better than Lord of the Rings movies. It shows more battle-ready Galadriel, more hot Sauron, more brown hobbits. That's all that matters, the brown hobbits. So let's talk about this, because I'm really surprised that Comic Book Resources dared criticize The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. They're not allowed to. I think it's almost like these media outlets are starting to realize they've been on the wrong side of it for the last couple of years, and it's almost like a lot of them are getting shut down because they're not bringing the views anymore because they've chased their own readers away with their bad takes. I'm just saying. There's something going on. I've seen more and more of these outlets kind of do a heel turn, and I think they realize they've lost a lot of ground to YouTubers. Let's go to Comic Book Resources. Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power's audience shrank every week. A new report suggests that viewership from the Amazon Prime Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power series steadily declined with each new episode. It actively drove people away. New reports show that the viewership for Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power contracted every week during its inaugural 8-episode run. Kind of like a sphincter, just contracted, every time Galadriel came on screen. According to an analysis from Variety, Nielsen reports indicate that the show earned 1% fewer minutes streamed every consecutive week. People probably tuned in to see if it got better. Nah, it's not any better. Moving on. With comparatively few viewers starting the show in the weeks after it premiered. The show also seemed to have its largest drop-off after the first 2 weeks, which showed a decline of around 20%. This suggests that a good amount of viewers who streamed The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power early on gave up on it pretty soon afterwards. Let me highlight that. Normies gave up on this shit show. YouTubers have been attacked for having doubts about this shit show for months, maybe even over a year since we started to get some information about where Amazon was going with this thing. Now, the weird thing is Warner Brothers still has the rights to do Lord of the Rings movies. The Rings of Power is mystifying metrics. While Nielsen's metrics only measure US viewership connected to television, excluding viewers streaming on other types of devices, the visible downward trend is notable in the trade's analysis, which sees it as problematic for the show's future growth. Remember, they want 5 seasons of this. Yet the Rings of Power is still making a victory of its impressive early viewership numbers. According to Amazon, Lord of the Rings prequel saw an impressive 25 million viewers in the first 24 hours. So what? You didn't keep them. Everybody jumped ship. The show also saw a spike in demand following its October 14th series finale. According to Pair Analytics, there was an impressive 55.7 times increase in viewership, which was an all-time high viewership number for season 1. That may bode well for season 2, which has officially begun filming outside of London, England, cheaper than New Zealand, I think. The show's executive producer, Lindsay Weber, already teased the show creators have some epic things in store for the new episodes, saying that if it's going to be grittier, more intense, maybe scarier. Now that Sauron's true identity is finally out. Now that Sauron has come out, it's going to be scary. So they're talking about the showrunners. And there are rumors that they're going to replace these guys. Again, remember, these are 2 guys that kind of floundered about Hollywood for 10 years. And because J.J. Abrams made a phone call, they got put in charge of the highest profile fantasy franchise in history. How the hell did that? What? That doesn't even make sense. And then they promptly, I don't know if it was these 2 or other people associated with the production, decided it was a good idea to fire the Tolkien scholars that were disagreeable and just kind of go their own way with it. Take it in a different direction, as they like to say. They took it in a different direction. So these are the showrunners. They said if you look at the audience response and you see what characters people love and what kinds of storytelling moves, them, they aren't overcorrecting for any of it. They're listening to people's responses. The response is that the show is dog shit and people are tuning out. That's what the response is. Amazon's never been exactly forthcoming with streaming data. This is coming from Variety. But in the case of Rings, a series representing the company's biggest investment in scripted content to date, the first season alone cost $465 million to produce. And tasked with becoming Prime Video's best performing title of all time, Amazon's silence is deafening. Okay, they're not bragging. If they're not bragging, they're hiding something. This is Hollywood. If you're winning, you got to make sure you do a victory lap and rub everybody's noses in it, and nobody's doing that. That's weird. I think Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon kicked its ass. It's especially deafening when compared with the company's reputed viewership disclosures for Thursday Night Football. Though Prime Video struck a deal with TV ratings giant Nielsen to measure the viewership for Thursday Night Football, Amazon has disputed Nielsen's figures each week of the broadcast, claiming, for instance, that 8.9 million people watched the October 20th game, while Nielsen said 7.8 million. Clearly, Amazon has no problem releasing viewership numbers when it so desires. They're not saying anything. That's weird. It is weird. And they're actually showing that Reacher Season 1 had more views. The Terminal almost tied with Lord of the Rings. The Boys Season 3 almost got as many views. That's Season 3. Wheel of Time almost got as much as Lord of the Rings. That's not good. That's not good at all. A pattern has also emerged in the Ring's week-to-week viewership that may help explain Amazon's silence. Until the most recent period measured, the series' minutes streamed decayed each week, albeit by only 1% over the previous 3 weeks. This pattern suggests Ring's audience shrank as the season went on, with little catch-up watching by new viewers taking place mid-season. Even when viewing time rose again, it failed to reach the heights of the series' initial weeks of release. The steeper, around 20% drop-off from its first 2 weeks suggests many viewers who checked it out didn't stay. It's not a great sign for its growth. That's also notable to the other blockbuster fantasy series of the moment, House of the Dragon, which has often been pitted against Rings. The Game of Thrones prequel spinoff grew its weekly viewership substantially early on before plateauing around the same level of viewing time as Rings. So they're not saying much. And that basically tells you everything you need to know. The show is a dud. It's dead on arrival. It's, I don't think, going to grow. I have to wonder if they're not going to get desperate and be like, somehow we're going to work time travel into it and bring Bilbo and Frodo into it, because people like those characters. And why not Gandalf too while we're at it? Show's dead on arrival. It's not going to get much better from here. Look at Westworld. God, HBO, they canceled Westworld because the viewership dropped off a freaking cliff. If they can't nail it in the first season, there's not going to be much of a future. People don't give these shows a second chance anymore. It's like there's so much stuff out there. You get one chance to get it right. Amazon did not get it right. And I would be very surprised if this show lasted 5 seasons as they planned. Gonna wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.